General Hospital spoilers for next 2 weeks from June 23 to July 4 reveal that the wedding of Drew and Willow is rapidly becoming more than just a milestone in their relationship, it's becoming a manifestation of something far more unsettling: obsession, control, and a deep-seated desperation to rewrite a reality neither of them is truly ready to confront. As word of their upcoming nuptials spreads throughout Port Charles, there's a growing sense among those closest to them that this union is less about love and more about image, survival, and control. What began as a tentative relationship has now spiraled into a fast-track ceremony with all the hallmarks of emotional urgency and psychological instability. Drew, once seen as the strong and steady protector, is now a man consumed by the need to secure his role in Willow's life, her daughter's future, and his own public redemption. Willow, once fragile but resilient, now appears trapped, pulled into a whirlwind of decision-making that barely allows her time to breathe, let alone reflect. Their preparations are methodical, almost militaristic. Invitations are sent hastily, decisions are made without consultation, and the entire atmosphere surrounding the ceremony reeks of choreography instead of authenticity. It's not that Drew is trying to make Willow happy, it's that he's trying to prove something. Prove he's worthy. Prove he's capable. Prove he hasn't lost everything. But in that need to prove, he's lost the essence of what marriage should be, a bond formed from mutual trust, not fear. Every choice he makes, every step he orchestrates, is a reaction to the crumbling image he's trying to hold together. And Willow, silent, compliant, increasingly distant, is the collateral damage of a man so desperate to rewrite his story that he doesn't see the woman standing beside him as breaking piece by piece. Friends and family are alarmed. Michael, once her soulmate, senses something is wrong and tries to reach her, but she's guarded, defensive, unwilling or unable to articulate her doubts. Carly watches Drew closely, her maternal instincts screaming that something is off. Nina, perhaps the most unexpected of all, sees a reflection of her own past in Willow's eyes. The quiet panic of someone realizing they've gone too far but don't know how to step back. And still, Drew pushes forward. He's convinced the wedding must happen before the custody hearing. That this will solidify their narrative as a loving, stable home. But it's not love that drives him, it's strategy, manipulation, and fear of losing everything again. What makes the situation more dangerous is the tightening timeline. With each passing day, Drew becomes more obsessive, micromanaging everything from Willow's dress fitting to the seating arrangements. He's not planning a celebration, he's constructing an alibi, a defense. A public image so tightly controlled that any crack could cause the whole facade to collapse. Willow, meanwhile, becomes more withdrawn. She doesn't cry. She doesn't argue. But her silence screams volumes. The moments she pulls her hand away from Drew, the forced smiles, the blank stares during bridal preparations, these are not the expressions of a bride in love. These are signs of emotional suffocation. And still, the date approaches. Everyone can feel the tension building, like static before a storm. Jacinda, a wild card in the background, is rumored to hold secrets that could dismantle Drew's entire narrative, proof of his manipulation, evidence of his hidden motives. And whispers begin to circulate about a bribery scandal involving a judge, one that could tie Drew directly to unethical behavior in the custody case. If that truth comes out, not only could it destroy Drew's chances in court, but it could also drag Willow down with him, sullying her name and her credibility as a mother. Michael's concern becomes urgent. He tries once more to speak with Willow, warning her that Drew isn't what he appears to be, that this wedding is a trap. Willow listens, but doesn't respond. There's a war inside her, a conflict between the guilt of abandoning Drew, the fear of being alone, and the flickering awareness that she may be making a colossal mistake. And perhaps, somewhere deep down, she's waiting for something, or someone, to stop the wedding before it's too late. The people of Port Charles are no strangers to chaos, but this wedding has an eerie edge. It feels like a performance for an audience who no longer believes in the show. Guests are uneasy. The venue is beautiful, but cold. The vows are written, but lack warmth. And the bride, though dressed in white, seems more like a ghost than a woman stepping into the next chapter of her life. Even Jason, who has been watching from a distance, senses the impending doom. He remembers the warning signs of other tragedies past, and this has all the makings of a catastrophic event. Meanwhile, Drew continues to reassure himself. He looks in the mirror and tells himself he's the hero, the protector, the man who's saved Willow from loneliness and brought structure to her life. But those affirmations are beginning to crack under the pressure. Every decision made without consent, every secret buried, every truth avoided, it's all building toward a singular, unavoidable conclusion. As the morning of the wedding arrives, Port Charles holds its breath. Rumors swirl that someone may interrupt the ceremony, that perhaps Nina will expose Drew's past affairs. Or that Jacinda will present evidence of manipulation, or that even Willow herself will finally find the strength to walk away. But no one truly knows how it will end. The only certainty is that this wedding has become a symbol, not of love, but of obsession, control, and the dangerous lengths people will go to avoid confronting the truth. And if Drew Kane believes that a rushed wedding can silence doubt, erase guilt, and restore honor, he may soon learn that the heart of Port Charles beats strongest not for appearances, but for truth. Because no matter how beautiful the chapel, how eloquent the vows, or how dazzling the ring, if a marriage is built on fear, silence, and manipulation, it will not stand. And for Drew and Willow, the question is no longer will they marry, but what will remain after the ceremony ends. Michael, Nina, and Tracy have all come to recognize what so many others have chosen to ignore or suppress. The rapid, relentless progression toward Drew and Willow's wedding is not a romantic gesture, but a manifestation of a much darker psychological shift. It has become an obsession cloaked in formality, a performance hiding the cracks beneath the surface. Each of them, in their own way, is trying to slam on the brakes before Willow walks blindly into something irreversible. And yet, time is running out. And the veil of perfection Drew has so carefully constructed is beginning to unravel. Michael, more than anyone, is fighting against the tidal wave of denial. His connection to Willow runs deeper than broken vows or failed love. It is rooted in parenthood, in shared grief, and in the quiet knowledge of who Willow truly is when she is safe, loved, and unafraid. He knows that what is happening now isn't that. He sees it in the way she avoids eye contact when asked about the ceremony, in the flatness of her voice when she says she's happy. He's watched her retreat from her instincts, silence her doubts, and fall into a role that feels more like a prisoner than a bride. And Michael has had enough. He's begun presenting her with questions, not accusations, not dramatic ultimatums, but unsettling truths that force her to pause. He asks if she really feels free. If she truly believes this wedding is for her and not for Drew. If she remembers the version of herself who once promised to never again surrender her voice for someone else's image. And in doing so, Michael isn't trying to win her back, he's trying to save her. What he's offering now isn't a second chance at love, but a mirror reflecting the uncomfortable reality that Willow has tried to ignore. Nina, surprisingly, has become another force of disruption, not out of rivalry, but out of genuine concern. For all her flaws and past mistakes, Nina has learned the hard way what it means to lose yourself inside someone else's narrative. She sees in Drew the same dangerous charisma that once lured her down destructive paths. And she refuses to watch Willow vanish behind a curtain of shoulds and musts. Nina has gone so far as to threaten to expose details of Drew's hidden relationships, the secret meetings, the whispered conversations that suggest Willow may not be his only priority. She knows it's risky. She knows she may lose the fragile connection she's rebuilt with Willow. But she also knows that sometimes love means telling the truth even when it costs you everything. Tracy, ever the strategist, is the one working quietly but efficiently behind the scenes. She doesn't believe in emotional pleas or theatrical gestures. What she believes in are results. Tracy has begun collecting documents, timelines, and eyewitness accounts, things that, when presented at just the right moment, might shatter the illusion Drew has created. She doesn't care whether it's Jacinda, Carly, or herself who drives the final nail into this wedding. What matters to Tracy is that the truth emerges before vows are exchanged. She knows that Drew's current obsession isn't about love, it's about control, power, and rewriting his failure into something noble. And she won't allow that to come at Willow's expense. What's most terrifying now is that Drew himself seems unaware of how far he's gone. He still tells himself this is about protecting Willow, about building a future for her and her daughter, about healing. But the way he isolates her, dictates the schedule, and shields her from opposing voices, none of it speaks of love. It speaks of fear. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of losing. Fear of not being enough. And that fear is becoming dangerous. His obsession with appearing like the perfect partner has transformed the wedding into a battlefield, where every guest is either an ally or an enemy, every question an act of betrayal. The closer the wedding comes, the more everyone feels the suffocating weight of what's at stake. And then, the real shock lands. Michael uncovers something, perhaps an old conversation. A buried document, or a testimony from someone Drew thought was silenced. Something that makes Willow stop. Not cry, not run, but freeze. A flicker of realization sparks in her eyes. And for the first time in weeks, she asks the question aloud, what if this isn't right? That moment becomes the true rupture. Because when Willow hesitates, Drew panics. His carefully crafted world begins to tremble, and his response will determine everything. Will he beg? Will he manipulate? Or will he show the very darkness Michael, Nina, and Tracy feared all along? This wedding, once a symbol of unity, is now a crucible. And as the clock ticks down, what began as a ceremony has become a reckoning, not just for Drew and Willow, but for everyone who allowed silence, fear, and appearances to cloud the truth for far too long. Daisy's baptism was supposed to be a celebration, a soft, sacred moment in Port Charles where loved ones could gather, breathe, and witness a symbol of renewal, innocence, and hope. But instead, it has become the unexpected epicenter of a storm no one saw coming. What began with warmth and laughter quickly shifted into something far more sinister. As the peaceful ceremony became overshadowed by the creeping presence of a new, dangerous force quietly asserting itself within the city's most cherished spaces. This isn't just an interruption. This is an invasion. And the chaos that follows is not simply incidental, it's calculated, and it's spreading. In the days leading up to the event, there were whispers, rumors of strange behavior, unexplained absences, and unsettling sightings around the Quartermain estate. But no one wanted to ruin the occasion, least of all Jason and Carly, who had poured themselves into preparing this moment for Daisy as a way to reclaim peace after so much recent trauma. Carly, driven by maternal instinct and a deep need to create something pure amidst the filth surrounding their world, had organized every detail. Jason, ever the protector, had made security his personal responsibility, refusing to let anything harm the little girl he'd come to care for like his own. But even with their vigilance, something darker had already slithered into their lives, hidden in plain sight. The first signs of unraveling were subtle. A face in the crowd that didn't belong. A figure too interested in who was entering and exiting the chapel. A phone call that dropped into static at the exact moment Jason tried to confirm a security detail. Then came the inexplicable silence, a kind of tension in the air that only seasoned survivors like Carly and Jason could recognize. It was the stillness before the explosion. And explode it did. As Daisy was brought forward in her white gown, as holy water shimmered in the candlelight, a sudden power outage engulfed the room in darkness. Screams echoed, Daisy cried. And confusion tore through the guests like wildfire. In that moment, the baptism became a battlefield. Jason's instincts kicked in immediately, pushing Carly and Daisy behind him. But even he couldn't predict what would happen next. From the shadows emerged a new threat, one not yet fully named, but unmistakably connected to a dark network recently awakened beneath Port Charles. Whether it was linked to Sonny's enemies, Drew's secrets, or the corrupt strings Jen Sidwell has been pulling, one thing became clear, this was a message. And it was personal. Carly, always strong but shaken to her core, found herself clinging to Daisy with trembling arms, realizing that their presence at the center of this chaos wasn't coincidental, it was intentional. Someone had chosen the most vulnerable, most symbolic moment of her daughter's life to strike. And worse, this wasn't a lone wolf attack. This was the beginning of a campaign. One calculated with surgical precision to destabilize the entire Corinthos circle. Jason, now caught in the impossible position of father figure, protector, and former enforcer, was forced into choices he hadn't made in years. Does he run? Fight? Hide Daisy away? Every option came with risk. But what terrified him more than the enemy outside was the growing suspicion that someone on the inside, someone within the trusted circle, had orchestrated this breach. The timing was too perfect. The chaos too efficient. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated madness. As emergency lights flickered on, revealing overturned pews, scattered guests, and the pale, wide-eyed face of Daisy clinging to Carly's neck, it was clear the damage had been done. Not physically, at least not yet, but psychologically. The message was loud and clear: no sanctuary is safe. No family is untouchable, and even a child's baptism is not off limits in this new war. What was supposed to be a renewal of faith has instead become a declaration of conflict. In the aftermath, Port Charles is reeling. Carly is unrecognizable, filled with a fury she hasn't felt since Morgan's death, a fury that could make her reckless, especially with Daisy's life now unmistakably at risk. Jason, meanwhile, is unraveling in silence, knowing that his past has finally caught up with his present, dragging this innocent child into a world she should never have known. Their partnership is strained, not by blame, but by the overwhelming weight of responsibility they now carry. Both of them know that this is only the beginning. This chaos has pushed them to the edge, emotionally, mentally, even physically. Their routines, their alliances, their very instincts are being tested. What once was a sacred bond between protector and child, mother and daughter, is now a liability in the eyes of those who want control. And the most frightening thing of all is the creeping realization that the person orchestrating this might not be some stranger lurking in the dark, but someone they know. Someone who's watched, listened, waited. The baptism of Daisy has now become a turning point. Not just for Carly and Jason, but for everyone connected to them. And the darkness that crashed down upon that chapel has followed them home, hiding in the corners of Daisy's nursery, in the eyes of every stranger they pass on the street. In the quiet spaces between their conversations where fear now lives permanently. One thing is certain, nothing will be the same. Not for Carly. Not for Jason. Not for Daisy. And whatever this new force is, it has made one thing brutally clear: the days of innocence in Port Charles are over. The innocent-looking dog that Vaughn claimed as his own is rapidly becoming more than just a lost pet. It is now a symbol of a larger, more calculated disturbance unfolding in Emma's world. What once appeared to be a chance encounter in the park has now evolved into one of the most unnerving and suspicious developments in her life. The presence of the dog, once a source of comfort and distraction, has morphed into a catalyst for emotional confusion, surveillance, and an eerie sense of being manipulated. Emma, known for her sharp instincts and guarded heart, is now grappling with something that feels deeply off but remains just out of reach. At first, the dog, who Emma affectionately named Outback, seemed like a blessing. She found him trembling near the woods, collarless, eyes wide with panic, as if he'd run from something or someone. He followed her home, curled up beside her bed, and for the first time in weeks, Emma felt like the universe had given her something gentle and hers. But everything changed the moment Vaughn appeared, claiming the dog was his. He wasn't aggressive or demanding. He was charming. Too charming. He offered a vague story about how the dog had slipped out of his backyard, about how much it meant to him. About how fate must have guided Emma to protect it until he could find them both again. And yet, none of it sat right. Vaughn's sudden interest in Emma, his frequent appearances in her path, his knowledge of things he shouldn't know, what she ate for lunch, what books she'd checked out, where she liked to jog, all pointed to something far more invasive. And now, with the dog back in his possession but constantly being used as a tool to reconnect with her, it's becoming clear, this wasn't coincidence. This was strategy. The dog was never truly lost. It was planted. And Emma? She was the target all along. The shifts are subtle but undeniable. Vaughn starts bumping into her at the coffee shop, claiming he's still training the dog and could use her help. He sends her pictures, out back sleeping, out back wearing a new collar, out back holding a toy she once gave him. It's all designed to maintain a connection, to guilt her into continued contact. And it's working, but not in the way he thinks. Emma is deeply unsettled. Every photo, every message, every unwanted drop-in is a reminder that something is deeply wrong. She tries to ignore it, to brush it off, but the pit in her stomach only grows deeper. Others are beginning to notice too. Gio has caught Vaughn watching Emma from across the quad. Trina has seen the messages and warned Emma that this isn't just about a dog. Even Jason, ever the distant observer, has felt the tension growing around her, asking pointed questions when Vaughn's name comes up. But Emma, torn between her instincts and her desire not to seem paranoid, hasn't been able to bring herself to cut Vaughn off completely. There's a part of her that still clings to the idea that maybe she's overthinking. Maybe this was just fate gone sideways. But then something changes. The dog begins showing up in places it shouldn't, outside her dorm room, tied to a lamppost near her building, even once waiting on the steps of her classroom. Each time, Vaughn isn't far behind. Always with a smile, always with an excuse. And now, it's not just about emotional manipulation. It's starting to feel like surveillance. Control. A way to trap Emma in a cycle of interaction where she can't escape without seeming cruel or unstable. The emotional pressure is mounting. Vaughn's presence is no longer just disturbing, it's oppressive. Emma starts losing sleep. She becomes jumpy, hyper-aware. Anxious in ways she hasn't been since she was a child living in a world full of secrets and shadows. And that's when she starts asking the real questions. Who is Vaughn, truly? Why does he know so much? Why does he care so deeply about keeping her tethered to this dog, and to him? The situation escalates when Emma tries to distance herself. She stops responding to messages. She changes her routine. But Vaughn doesn't take the hint. One night, she returns to her apartment to find the dog inside, sleeping on her rug, a note pinned to its collar that simply reads, "I knew he missed you." There's no signature. No explanation of how he got in. Just the unspoken threat that no boundary she sets will hold. This, finally, becomes the breaking point. Emma reaches out, to Gio, to Jason, even to Robert Scorpio. What started as a seemingly benign interaction with a charming stranger and a lost dog has now exposed a full-blown psychological operation that may connect to something much larger. Could Vaughn be working for someone? Is he part of a surveillance ring? Is this about Emma's family, her past, or something more sinister related to the dark forces swirling through Port Charles? One thing is clear, the dog is no longer just a pet. It's a symbol, a tool, and a warning. Emma is no longer simply the target of unwanted attention, she's in the center of something dangerous. Calculated, and growing. And as the walls begin to close in, she will have to decide quickly who she can trust, how far she's willing to go to protect herself. And whether she can outmaneuver a man who may have been planning this far longer than anyone realized. Because in Port Charles, nothing is ever what it seems, and sometimes the quietest beginnings lead to the most explosive ends. The Corinthos family stands on the edge of chaos as Sonny uncovers a devastating secret, one that threatens to unravel not only his trust but the very core of his power. For years, Sonny has kept control of his empire and protected his loved ones with unwavering loyalty and dominance. But now, with this shocking revelation, everything he thought was stable begins to crack. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about obsession, an unrelenting need to regain control over a reality that's slipping through his fingers. At first, the signs were small. Uneasy glances. Hushed conversations, schedules that didn't add up. Sonny sensed something was off, but the truth hits him like a sledgehammer. Someone close has kept a secret that changes everything. Whether it's a betrayal from Michael, a lie from Carly, or a buried truth about his empire's foundation, the discovery destabilizes him completely. A new darkness awakens in Sonny, not one driven by bipolar disorder, but by sheer, consuming obsession. He dives headfirst into uncovering how deep the deception goes. Pushing allies away and treating every silence as confirmation of guilt. Michael tries to reason with him, but Sonny is past reason. Nina fears he's spiraling again. While Carly braces for the storm she knows is coming. Even Jason begins to feel the pressure as loyalty and truth collide. The once unified Corinthos family begins to fracture. Not because of outside enemies, but because Sonny no longer trusts anyone inside the circle. What's worse, Sonny's obsession triggers consequences far beyond the family. His business starts bleeding as he scrambles to secure assets. Federal eyes turn toward him again. Former enemies smell weakness. Port Charles feels the shift. And a name once feared becomes a symbol of collapse. In the middle of it all, Sonny loses sight of what matters. His obsession consumes him. He isn't just trying to protect his family anymore, he's trying to control every narrative, rewrite every betrayal, and punish anyone who stood in his way. But in doing so, he risks destroying everything. The Corinthos family isn't just in danger, they're at war with their own leader. And if Sonny doesn't stop, the empire he built may fall, not from external threats, but from the implosion of his own need for control.